So I told Joel to text me if he's gonna call in.
I'll just turn it on. Rather than have music playing all the time.
Set? Okay, good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to tonight's school board meeting. It is May the 4th. Would you all please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We do have a public participation on our agenda, which is open right now. I think we have a phone number to call in. It should be on the screen of the Google Meet. I'm going to leave it open, and if somebody wants to call in, ask the board a question.
Do you want me to read the number?
Oh, go ahead, Ruth Ellen, if you'd like.
It is 484-841-4208. The PIN is 471-457-088, and the pound sign.
So on the board, we have Tim and myself present. Stan is on the Google Meet, and so is Josh Whitehouse. And Joel hopefully will be joining us later. He's indisposed at the moment. Next on our agenda, we have approval of meeting minutes. So we have the first one's April 6th, non-public.
Make a motion to approve as written.
I'll second for discussion. Any discussion? Not hearing any, all in favor?
Aye.
Power on.
Stan?
Bluetooth enabled. Your device is disconnected.
Stan said, well,
I thought that was Josh.
is that Josh?
Power off.
Stan? Okay.
So
Okay,
4-0.
sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, thanks. So that's
Got it.
unanimous. Next, we have minutes of April 13th, public session.
Make a motion to approve as written.
I'll second for discussion. Is there any discussion regarding the minutes? Not hearing any, all in favor as written? Aye.
Aye.
So that's unanimous.
Okay.
Next, we have meeting minutes of April 13th, non-public sections 1, 2, and 3. Do we want to handle these together?
I have no problem doing them in a group.
So I'll make a motion to approve non-public sessions 1, 2, and 3 as a group.
Second.
Any discussion? Not hearing any, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Is that 4?
Yeah.
Okay.
Next, we have meeting minutes of April 20th, public session.
Make a motion to approve as written.
I'll second for discussion. Any discussion? Not hearing any, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's 4.
Okay.
Next, we have meeting minutes of April 20th, non-public, 1 and 2,
Make a motion to approve as written.
for both.
Yes.
I'll second. Any discussion? Not hearing any, all in favor?
Aye.
So it passes unanimously. Next on our agenda, we have financials. So I think,
Can I make a comment before we move?
go ahead, Stan.
I don't think it's kind of fair to list others present by phone. It shouldn't make a difference between whether you're a board member present or a board member not present. So we're not listed as board members, we're listed as present by phone in some of these minutes. It's not necessarily a cool thing.
Okay.
So you'd like it reflected to be just present or present by a phone?
It doesn't matter whether I'm on the phone or whether I'm in person, I'm present. That's the point. So not including me in the list of board members that are present and including me in the list of present by phone is reflecting the truth.
Okay. So
Okay.
we will remove by phone. I think the issue is to make sure that if someone looks at the recording, they're not saying, well, where is he? You were present, but not necessarily on camera. So that was but I will certainly make sure that's reflected.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with it. Jim?
I don't have an issue with it.
Josh?
Mr. King?
Yes.
This is Karen Mellon. I don't know if you can hear me. I wanted to mention I couldn't get my mute up clean up, but on
I will,
Okay, thank you, that's not a substantial change.
What I'm referring to is on April 20th, it says board members present, and Charlie is listed, and then it says board members absent, Joshua is listed, and then it says present by phone, and it lists Joe and I, so it doesn't list us as board member. It's listed as being present by phone.
So it should be, at the top of board members present, it should be listed there. Is that what you're saying?
yes.
Okay, yeah, right.
You can put virtual or something after it if you
Right.
want, but I'm at the meeting, and so it should be.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. See, I don't
Well,
think,
and in the others, it says present, and it says, like for April 6th, Charlie King, Chair, Tim Brown, Joel Shagnon via phone, Stan Frieda via phone, but listed under present for board members. Is that?
Right.
Okay, all right,
okay,
let me mark
Before
that.
we go too much further, just for people who are remote again, I wanted to add, if you're having trouble muting and unmuting yourself, you can just hit Control-D on the keyboard and Delta, Control-D to mute and unmute.
okay, thank you for that. Next we have on our agenda is reports, financials. Ruth Ellen, where would you like to start?
That's going to be Mrs. Mellon?
Jen, are you with us?
Or maybe
Yes,
it's,
I am. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
So
Is there
we
maybe-
just have it on our agenda. Is there anything you want to point us to directly regarding this, or?
Not in particular, I realize these meetings go long, and I know that you read the report that I put together to supplement with the financials. The only point that I would like to emphasize, and again, I'm sure everyone in the room is well aware, the COVID-19 situation is going to continue to have an impact on our ability to expend the remaining amount of our budget. We're not using as many supplies, we're not using as much custodial supplies. Just to be aware, as we go into the end of the year, there are some things for which we aren't able to spend as anticipated, because when we put this budget together, of course, we didn't anticipate no students in the building. So just as we get closer to the end of the year, you'll get a more realistic picture of what we're going to have coming into the end, but I would anticipate that we will have some excesses in our supplies and, and in our, equipment and other types of expenditures that aren't related to staffing just because of the situation.
Okay, thank you, Jana.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Also, in relation to budget, I want to put on the board's radar, and it may not be for tonight, but certainly we'll need to be looking at it within the next couple of meetings. The vote that was done back in early March in regard to our current situation with the emergency orders lasts as far as paying staff through the emergency orders or June 30th, whichever comes first. If the emergency orders are rescinded before June 30, then it doesn't really matter. If we are looking at emergency orders not being fully rescinded before June 30, that vote still runs out with the contract year. So at that point, it would be back to hours worked only that would be under current pay conditions. And I think that's something that the board may want to be thinking about what they want to do in light of, but certainly not anticipating that that's going to be status quo moving forward. I expect that things are probably going to slowly start opening up, but in the event that we have a quick back to where we are currently, the board may want to have that contingency in place to decide where they want to go, what their plans will be there. So, just putting that out for thought.
Tim?
Just have a quick question on the financials is, we're a Title I district, and there seems to be a lot of money currently in the budget. Do we see any of that being expended before the end of the year, and has the legislature extended that for a year.
All of our title grants have been extended for a year,
Okay,
with the exception of IDEA.
right, okay.
And so we do have additional time to expend that. Also, the CARES Act that's coming up
Has
is
additional.
roughly, it's based on Title I apportionment formulas, but the expenditure formulas are on Title II, and everything right now is kind of hung up in Concord while they figure out what's coming down the pike. So we don't have that other than we're told something's coming. And we may not have that before June, but we'll see.
Okay. I'm good on the financials. I'll talk about the rest when we get to the budget.
Okay.
Okay. Next, we have on our policies, we have,
We have a report from,
reports, sorry. You're right. We had a couple other reports.
right,
We did. I haven't read them.
there is one from Mrs. Danito, who I believe is
Yep.
with us, and I also included for you our non-compliance report. Just
Yes.
so you know, we are in 100% compliance.
Yeah, it was
I'll let
it
Diana
was
talk more
referenced
about
here,
that.
and
Yep.
I read the supporting document.
Okay. So I also have included in your packet, I'm not sure if Mrs. Danito is with us, the other piece is our letters on school facility approvals from Marjorie Schoonmaker at the DOE, and all 3 schools have been approved.
Yep, I did read that.
Okay.
So I did have one question in the student service report.
Okay?
In the second paragraph, it says we made a number of calls to students in attempts to get them re-engaged in learning. Teachers and staff are willing to work with students to help them get organized and prioritize the work that they need to do.
Yes.
And I read that and is this a concern of we not getting enough participation? Or
We have some-
what does this mean?
We have some students, and I'll let Mrs. Danito jump in here too. We have some students who have not been as engaged as we'd like to see them in remote learning. Some have struggled to kind of get the pacing down. Others have not been as present as we would like to see them, and really aren't doing much. And so we are reaching out to families, trying to make sure that we have as many opportunities for them to kind of get back to where they need to be. For those who have more or less dropped off radar, we have also had our SRO doing wellness checks to make sure that things are okay on the home front. And we have been doing reporting to DCYF where it was necessary.
Is the SRO officer typically the person that we have do wellness checks? Or this is a little bit different situation?
Well, this is a different situation, and she's not going as a truancy officer, she's going just to make sure that everything's
Okay,
okay.
in the home.
Okay,
Yeah.
I have a
go ahead.
question under the student services report. Diana talks about doing a survey to parents if we're in a remote learning situation over the summer and whether parents want to participate. When I read that, I was also wondering what happens if we reopen up? What is that public perception at this point in time? And do we do it as kind of a double? You know, what would be a preference if we had a pick?
Right now, we're polling staff, we're also polling parents to see if this is something they're even willing to consider.
Right.
I need to see, number one, am I going to have enough staff to even run
A summer school.
And then two, if we aren't able to do in person, are parents just done? And some are pretty close. We need to look and be careful about trying to do a hybrid model. If I have the same teachers trying to do face-to-face and then run home and do remote, that doesn't work well either. That's an awful lot to expect. And to try to do small groups, while one model that's been suggested is one teacher has a small group and then those kids leave and another group comes in. But if the same teacher is exposed to both groups and then that group comes back, they might as well all have been together.
So I guess maybe I can rephrase my question.
Okay.
Would our summer school model be a remote model if we have a summer school program?
Right now, that is what we are planning. Because
okay.
we at least know we can do that.
All right, then what I asked doesn't make sense
Yeah.
in that.
If things are opened up enough, I'll have to see if I have staffing to do it.
So how many staff positions are required for summer school?
It depends upon how many students I have coming in. Not to be
historically
cheeky.
then? Right.
Typically, we have for Title I at the elementary level, it's usually been 2 to 3 teachers, the same number of paras, and then we also have teachers for ESY.
If I can participate.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I had headphones turned in, I unplugged them, and now you can hear me.
Okay, good. Oh, no, you've been talking. Go ahead.
In terms of the survey that we're sending out, we certainly have to provide, we're required to provide extended school year services for any student that may show signs of regression due to any condition. It could be time lapse in the classroom, it could be just virtue of the fact that they're not quite developmentally ready for whatever we're asking them to do. Right now, the survey that's being sent out is to determine if the students, what the likelihood is that the parents will have to participate if we're going to have to be in a remote situation. That is mostly to be able to plan for staffing. Because certainly I don't want to have a bunch of people on staff and then not have them have anything to do. So that's the survey that went out today. So parents will be able to respond to that and we'll be able to collect the information. We'll certainly get back to them. If a parent didn't have an email, case managers will be reaching out via phone. In terms of getting students to re-engage, some students have just loved this platform. They really enjoy being online. They're looking forward to it for some parents we've been talking to. Others find it very difficult to organize themselves. They're not used to kind of the visual complexity that is on a screen sometimes. They're not sure because they've been off for a while. They come in and they're not sure what assignments they should prioritize doing. And special education teachers are very, very adept, very quick at getting them back on track. We've had a lot of parents, a number of parents I've spoken to, they're first responders. They're working 12-hour, 14-hour shifts. They ask their kids if they're doing the work, and of course the kids say they are. And they might be doing some of it, but not all of it. So we just make that connection. I make sure I get the case managers on it, and once we get connections, we're off to the races. So it's really just a matter of that. I think it's, we're getting towards May. Weather's been nice now. We're kind of, beginning to be a little more like one fishing and, opening a book. So no problem. So we're just going to throw back on track. If I could, just take a couple minutes, when I go with our special education staff, indicator 11 is an indicator that, kind of is really a big measure of your district. It's the degree to which you are able to get evaluations done in 60 days from the time you get that parent's signature to evaluate a student, if that is the direction you need to go, and then hold the meeting and determine if the child is eligible. It sounds simple, but it doesn't count vacations, it doesn't count weekends, it doesn't take into account the fact that case managers are working with all of their students teaching and case managing other students. Related services people are still providing services, direct services in the classroom and in groups, and that we still have our regular 3-year evaluations that are going on. So to get 100%, and we've done this for a number of years now, is really just wonderful. And I just want to come in and congratulate our special education staff for that. I do mention specifically our district evaluators, Danielle Dalton, who's our OT, Beth Fournier, who's the speech pathologist, Jillian Landers, our school psychologist. She's she's nationally certified, and Kathy Ciros, who's our other speech pathologist. And I just, can't thank them enough, and all the special education teachers, particularly Ellen Letourneau. I'll put a shout out from her. She's just been drowning in preschool referrals. So she's fighting her way through it, and that's been wonderful. I do indicate contact information. Should anybody need to get in touch with a special education teacher, email is great. They certainly also can call the SAU building, and I will be happy to send them in the right direction. That number being 755-2627. On page 2, you've got some good news on Medicaid reimbursement. We are approximately $43,000 over what we projected for revenue. We projected pretty conservatively $20,000. Now that we've gotten through the process of getting those doctor's orders in place, which is no small feat, and I do want to thank Darlene Lemire for her persistence in getting that pulled together. Kids put together the form, we have parents sign it. Parents then have to have a physician that they're actually bringing their child to. In some cases, people get busy and they haven't had an opportunity for a child to have a well child check. And as a result, a physician can't sign off on a Medicaid permission if they haven't seen the child in a while. Some doctors some families are between physicians. So that can present a bit of a hurdle. And then we've got to get those orders out to the physicians. Physicians sign them, get them back to us, we get it inputted. Everybody else does their part, paraeducators, related service personnel putting in their information into our Medicaid platform so that we can then seek reimbursement through Medicaid to schools. So it's not a small process, and I'm thrilled that we're very much to the plus side there, and I thank everybody for their diligence in this. Summer school or ESY programming, extended school services, we're waiting to see. If we could be in the buildings, that would be wonderful. If we can't, we will create a valuable online learning experience. And that's about where I put it. I've got plenty of special education teachers every year that are willing to participate, paraeducators that are willing to participate. Our people are absolutely tough and persistent.
And excited to get back with kids.
I'm so proud of them. And then finally, just a little shout out to the parade, which is wonderful to see the kids. The theme for everybody that we miss our students, and so many signs we saw that they miss us. And it was a real plus in all of this to be able to get out and just say hi as we went driving by. So that's my report. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
I think that covers it. Tim, you know?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Anyone else with questions? Do you want to go to next, Ruth Ellen? We have from the report from the business administrator. It did spur in a couple questions for me.
Okay, she's on. So.
Not that's on. What was we had a discussion. We talked about software for the management software, and I guess my question was, where do we stand with that as far as moving forward? I know that they looked at a different proposal as far as the software and them hosting it, and I know there was some discussion on that. When is that coming back before us?
We had brought it back that next week. We said We've got the software. The purchase of the software itself was in the $86,000, $87,000 range. That doesn't include the management thereafter, but we do not need to purchase the server that accompanies it because we're able to do that now. So our upfront cost would be the software itself, which it's under 9, it's over 8, somewhere in there.
8,000.
Ish.
Yeah, I think it's 89,000.
It may be, no, 8, between 8 and 9,000. And then I know that the training piece that went with that, we can pay as we go. So we have a little bit more latitude. That was the piece that we had more latitude with and what that looked like. That was I want to say in the $30,000 range.
But that was overtime based
That
upon
can be
services
overtime.
rendered.
Yes.
Is that coming before this board for us to approve, or what's the current status of it, I guess?
Well, that was in that general
Right.
spending
Right.
plan that you had approved as a whole.
Okay.
So if you want that brought separately, we can do that.
I just didn't
I
know
had-
if it was underway or what the
I had
status
understood
was.
it as a bulk. It's not underway yet because we're in the process of trying to close out a school year, and I
Okay.
wasn't going to be transitioning yet.
So
But certainly,
When do you think that would be?
well, looking to get that done now if we, or at least purchased on this side of things.
Yeah, I would just like to see the documents, and if there's agreement, a service agreement for those services, I'd just like to see a copy before.
Okay,
you know.
we can do that.
I just, Tim?
Just as a reminder, by policy, because it's over the 5,000, it requires a bid. However, I understand that this is the preferential piece of software that you want. So my suggestion would be to identify why it would be a sole source contract.
Or has that already been
and to
done?
bring that back to us to waive a bidding requirement.
Okay.
All right, was
All
that
right.
done in the prior board? Did they do that?
Not as such, no. So we can put that on for the 18th.
Yeah, it just have to be a
Okay.
formality.
Okay, thank you.
I did not know if it was done before. The other thing that's listed, project updates, the tile is done in the library, or media center. We're in
Yes, it
here
is.
tonight. Looks nice. Door card access system. I guess just not knowing what is that comprised of, and
For Henry Wilson, we have swipe card access. This building and Valley View does not. So we are looking at, we have that as part of our security pieces that went through.
Yeah.
That's been bid, accepted, and now we're just in the process of scheduling that work to be done.
And when is that scheduled to take place? And
Hopefully within the next 6 weeks or
and it's
so.
the same system that we're using?
It's a similar system. We're trying to get everything merged together. We have some older software there. This will obviously be newer, but we should be able to tie back together again, so.
So that will give us not only access, but recording of who comes and when, comes and goes and when. And that'll be, those will be issued to staff and employees?
Yes, yeah, employees, yeah.
Are any of those cards given to any other people, such as people that might be a coach or a stipend position? I mean, is there a policy of
It's not-
who would be given those cards? Just,
There's not a set policy. They are given out carefully, and with the access, it's much better than a key because number one, I can turn it off,
yeah.
and number two, I can set hours on it. So somebody doesn't have unlimited access, like if a key is handed out, I can say you're only in between the hours of this and this on this day to this day, and that's it. So it gives a whole lot
Right.
more structure. There have been times that coaches have had.
So I didn't know if there was
It
a...
won't probably be an issue at Valley View.
Yeah, I didn't know if
because-
there was a policy of we haven't had in the past. I don't know if you had a policy at the school that you have it now, or you just been, first time that was done, you just,
It's pretty much
yeah.
as needed, and we keep track of who's got access to what. So if that's something that you want the policy.
no, I was just curious to see what was in place, and
Okay.
because if this is, like I said, it's added, so hopefully that
It won't
It
just,
might be
it won't be your
an
breathing, here's your card.
it might be an opportunity to, if you had a policy or system in place, that you review that and say, okay, maybe we should make some changes to that, now that you've got some experience with it. Go
Just like say, even if they have a card. even if they
Microphone?
do have-
Probably pull the mic over to you. So people
Speak into the mic.
Yes, even if they do have a card, an access card, they still need a code for the alarm system if it's
Okay.
armed.
Right.
So even if somebody has a card, if they're not authorized to be there, if they go in, they're gonna set the alarm off.
Right, so somebody may have a card, but the building is open when they come in.
Right, right. I mean, there are many staff members now that have cards but don't have the alarm codes.
And
So how often does the alarm get set off? Accidentally? not
Usually
that often?
on weekends with coaches.
Okay.
Yes. We
Only
flip
because
for who
they-
comes
only
up.
because they forget how to punch it in.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah, that was only a couple questions that I had for you. So we want to move along to policies?
We can do that.
We had,
Ruth Ellen?
Yes?
Is the MS-22 signature going to be happening under financials, or do you have it somewhere else?
It was in the financials packet, so it's behind the treasurer's report. And if you notice that that's a revised treasurer's report for January as well.
we can take that up now if you want.
Okay?
Just have a logistical question on the MS-22, where we're in the Corona-19. Typically, each board member signs.
I can do that. I can send it for an electronic signature if we need to.
Okay. My other question was, would they accept a vote to authorize the chairman to sign on behalf, or does it have to be an individual?
I think
it'll
we're
probably
probably better
Individual.
to do electronic
Okay.
signatures.
All right, I'm good with that.
And I'm going to need more than one copy signed.
Yeah.
But we can,
That's extra.
so there's one.
Okay, so do we going to lead off with some discussion, or?
I went through it. I don't see any issues with it, and I make a motion to sign it as presented. I went through our entire warrant articles that were passed,
Yeah.
compared the numbers to what's on that DRA form, and they match perfectly. So I don't have any problems with it at all.
Jana, do you have anything to add?
No, not really. Basically, as Mr. Brown alluded to, it's based on the votes and the warrant articles. A lot of it comes over from the MS-27, which is what we prepared as a part of the budget cycle. The only significant difference between that and the MS-22 is the budget cuts have come out of different areas. If you recall, the budget committee said just take the entire cut from 1,100, and you folks have decided to make cuts in different areas. So the DOE had given me guidance that I should make that line up as closely with what we anticipate we're going to spend as possible. So the number remains the same, but you'll notice the differences between those function codes amounts.
Okay, Ms. Allen? Anything to add?
No, really, it matches the spending plan that we had discussed. And while it's still a bottom line budget, it's trying to make things match up as closely as what we'd intended to do, so.
So you had a motion?
I did.
There's a motion, there's no second, Colonel.
I'll second for discussion.
Yeah, I have no issue with the form and signing it. My motion was to accept it as written.
So Josh or Stan, any discussion on the motion to approve the MS-22 for signatures?
No discussion here.
Not hearing any discussion, all's in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, thank you. So for those of you who are participating electronically, I can send this to you for an electronic signature. Or we can, for those of you who are closer, we can figure out if you want to sign it in person, whichever
You
you
need more
prefer to
copies than
do.
one?
I'm going to need at least 2 copies.
I can send it electronically, you can send it over.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, I will get those sent to you within the next 24 hours.
While we're on budget, do you have a projected time period when we'll have next year's budget as drafted by this board in a written format? And the reason I'm asking is I saw a notice that Budget Committee is expected to
Yep.
re-meet starting this month.
I have this now,
Okay.
and I can get copies of that to you. this is as approved and as done for the MS-22.
Perfect.
So, and it's purple, just so Jana and I can tell which version we're looking at. I will get you one that isn't necessarily purple if you would prefer. I also have put together for the Budget Committee a memo that includes the questions that they had asked in regard to expenditures. I'm pulling together what we've done so far under our COVID expenditures.
Yep.
I will have that report to the board probably by the end of the week. I have the audit reports to send them last month's and this month's financials, and just kind of a quick, and here's what we think we know about the CARES Act, because they had asked about other unanticipated funds. And then in addition, we have exceeded what we were thinking we might end up with for the Medicaid payments, which is good news, because for a while it looked like we were going to be really scraping to even hit our mark of 20,000. So,
There was a grant announcement that Diana got, I think it was $6,000. So that would be down the line as far as an acceptance of an unanticipated revenue, or?
and knowing that we're going to, go ahead, Jana.
I was just gonna say, because it's under IDEA, it's not unanticipated revenue, it's just another allocation that comes underneath that grant.
Because it's under the same
It needs to be expended by September 30th, 2020. So it will go to purchasing items that will assist with interventions during remote learning, and also that can be used in the classroom once we return back to the physical building.
Yeah, and that was listed on the grant snapshot from Jana. Is that the one?
Yep.
Yes, I see that there.
Yeah,
Okay.
and so because that's part of that allocation, and it's a quick turnaround, they are also in the process with 2 or 3 other grants looking at the fact that the DOE isn't going to be given additional time to expend some of theirs that are ending now. They're doing, okay, here's a little bit more on this grant, here's a little bit more on that grant. We'll have to see where those fall. But if they add them to existing grants, it's existing.
So she doesn't need anything from us to act?
No.
Okay.
No. CARES Act will require,
Yes.
once we get that will require acceptance. And we may want to look at whether we accept that on this end of things or
Right.
in the next fiscal year, which it may make more sense to do it in the next fiscal year. So,
Okay, moving to policy section.
okay?
We have in the folder, Ruth Ellen added a pre-bidding approval form. And I looked at it and I thought it would be a good idea to, or at least initially, for it to come before the board, so there would be at least, I don't know if everyone had a chance to look at this, but just kind of give a scope of what the bid was intended for and what the purpose was, and also having the board's ability to comment as far as suggestions on where they think they may either list it, who they may solicit, or things that they may feel are important to be considered before writing a formal RFP. I went through the bid policy, and I think it's fine the way it is. I didn't really come with any changes, but I thought this initial step would at least give the board comment beforehand, before, as far as at least any thoughts that we could add into the process.
I looked at the form, I like it. I'm good with it.
Stan or Josh, any comments?
No, sir. No.
So, yeah, I mean, I think if we could start using this, and I think maybe
Okay.
we'd hopefully learn something from it, and
Do you,
So then,
My only question has to do with how far in advance are you looking to get that before we bid? Because that doesn't seem to outline that kind of timeline in policy.
Well, the intent is for it to be before the board, before, say, the bid would be drafted. So you have...
before it's posted, we could,
Right.
we could do this as a summary sheet with the,
Right, so it's really got to do more with, say, the start of formation of that bid document. Whatever that document needs to be for a timeline, this is just hopefully a step that will forward, help to get it, a board's input sooner than, say, later than, say, if somebody crafted a bid process for something and the board would say later, saying, well, I don't think that's the way we should go, I think we should try this. And to kind of circumvent that and given some basically comment, and thoughts before the bid is written.
so I think.
So I don't know if that answers the question, because I don't think it
Let me
needs to be
translate what I
formal.
think the
Yeah.
question was.
Okay.
I think the question is, if we know that we are looking to get a bid out by X date, how long do you anticipate needing this ahead of time for approval for us to be able to do
I
that?
would say one meeting.
One meeting?
One meeting
Okay.
before, that you would work on that bid. So, I mean, it's just like, okay, this is what we want to put out for bid. These are the reasons why.
Okay.
And it gives the board chances to
give
think
some
about it
feedback.
and give some comment or suggestions of saying,
I just want to make sure it wasn't like a first read, second read
no,
type of. Okay.
no. Because really, you have an intent that you want to go for bid and saying, okay, this is what we feel is important to go into it, as being new board members, and then you could take those thoughts and then write the RFP. Ideally, if time permits, it should come back to the board. Yeah, that's what we agree with that. That's what we want.
Okay, so that's it. So pre-bid form, and then before the bid goes out, you want to approve the bid before it gets posted?
I think that would be safer initially until we all
Okay.
get on the same page.
All right.
Because everyone has different things that they.
So we're looking at a month's lead time before we can put out a bid. I'm just making sure that we know what we're looking
I mean,
at.
like I said, thoughts are trying to, not drag it down, but streamline as far as basically everybody being on the same page for when we go out to bid. What comes back is what we've expected.
Okay,
And then we're ready more,
okay. And if there is a,
time issue.
if there's a time issue, or would it be possible to say, this is our cover sheet, and the bid is included, so you can look at both together if it needed to be expedited? Not saying that that's necessarily the general process, but,
Yeah, I mean,
I
I
thought-
think we just take it as a case-by-case basis.
Okay.
If it needs
All
to
right.
be, then we'll just kind of work through it. I mean, I
Okay.
don't want to come up with a tremendous burden, but I don't want to basically have staff doing things that we make them redo. Oh, I got all this work into it. Well, okay, we wanted to do it this way because of these reasons. And we might be right, we might be wrong, and we might change our mind based upon feedback, but a lot of that is going to be, I
Right
think,
there. Okay.
supported there. Tim? Yeah, I was going to go back and recommend the month versus the 2 weeks on the bidding process, just because depending on how complex the process is, I may come to a meeting, look at something and say, I need to do research, or I need to look something up or whatever. So I like you saying the month, because I think it gives you a safety net per se, with the understanding that if it's a priority contract, that, yeah, we waive it.
Okay, all right.
I mean, some things are going to be pretty simple. They may not even say, hey, we don't need, like, say, if we're doing a copier lease.
Right.
And it might be a multi-year lease, and we're going to put that up for bid because you may not like your current supplier, and you're going to say, we're going to see what's out there because we don't like the brand or having uptime issues. So you just say, that's pretty basic. And do we need to do that? No. You
Okay.
might say, hey, do we need to do that?
Okay, all right, that makes sense. So then what I would need, because this becomes an addendum to that policy, I would need a vote to accept this so that I can include that on the, accepted by the board on this date.
So I'll make that motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Not hearing any discussion. All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next, we had KFA, Public Conduct on School Property.
Okay. And this one,
I looked at the policy, and I brought this,
yes.
Yeah, I have a comment on that. It was something, I think it was item 6, I thought it was 11, RSA, yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Josh.
All right, so RSA 159.26, section 1 says that we're not allowed to touch that.
Right.
In relation to firearms, unless you can find weapons.
Well, right, and I think that, unless you put in there something about licensed or,
Well, you're not required to be licensed now, but my recommendation to make this comply with the current law would be just to strike Section 6 for the simple reason that when you read Section 4 violates any New Hampshire law or town, or I'd actually strike county because we don't have any county ordinances, then the policy covers everything that's in that number 6.
well, being under the influence, I mean, if somebody is on school property,
Yep.
that's an issue. It's not illegal to be under the influence as long as you're not driving, but you can't be here.
Well, my thought on it, would we be better off just to reference that RSA in this section? So, because the first part, I think, is okay, or possess dangerous weapons or devices or weapons
Except
in
as allowed.
accordance with,
Or except as allowed by RSA.
or except as allowed by RSA. Because we cite that RSA, because then, we address that there's certain things that we don't have jurisdiction over by state law, but
Correct.
these other ones we want to address.
Right.
But I think if I were to make that amendment, I would amend it, possess dangerous devices or weapons as prohibited by RSA 159.
I would, that almost avoid each other out at that point. 159 basically says you're not allowed to touch it whatsoever, so you're basically saying, well, we're going to ban all these weapons except for everything in that RSA, which is basically what we're trying to get rid of with that policy.
Well, but-
I would prefer banning the conduct like of something in a running manner over and above anything listed in 159.26.
But 159 deals with firearms. There are other weapons that,
Are defined in
Are def-
159. Your jerk knife,
okay.
your
Yep.
brass knuckles, that's all.
You're basically saying, well,
Incendiary device.
you can bring all the weapons you can't bring any weapons to school except for a firearm.
No, that's not what my motion would do, Josh. What my motion is trying to do is say, if you have a weapon prohibited under 159, which is your dirk knife, your brass knuckles, your stilettos, then you can't possess those on school property. Anything that's allowed under 159 would be allowed, which is
Unless
what-
you're a student.
unless you're a student or under our employee policy, an employee.
Right.
Do we define that regarding student, what you just said?
That's defined in the Safe School Zone Act, different policy.
It is. And no person on school property or a school event shall do these. And then there are further policies that define other strictures on students and staff. This is public conduct.
Okay.
So are we looking at except as prohibited by RSA 159-27?
No person on school property
Why don't we
shall-
just say in accordance with? Because,
Well, because it's no person shall
Right.
possess
Possess
in
dangerous-
accordance with. Well, you
and-
can't say you shan't do in accordance to, because that's a double negative.
Possess dangerous
oh, there you go with
devices,
that English again.
Sorry.
possess dangerous weapons or possess dangerous devices or weapons as defined by RSA 159.
I'll accept that, if that's your motion. You think that works, Ruth Ellen? As defined?
It's 159-27, right?
Well, I would
Or just RSA
RSA
159?
159 because sometimes your subsections change with your
Right,
legislative
okay.
body.
So, is that a motion?
That's a motion.
Chapter 159.
Okay, and also, I got thinking about
Okay.
what you said as we were walking in the door today. Do we want to look at number 5 as well and include vaping?
That's restricted, right? It's restricted for,
Well, I mean, it's our property,
Right.
but,
Do we,
and that's kind of up for discussion. That may not be.
vaping is a tobacco product, correct?
no,
It's not?
It's nicotine, well,
Okay.
nicotine or other. The hard part is that you don't know what's in it.
right.
Yeah.
You don't know what the consumer may know what's in it, but we don't know what's in it.
Correct.
Whether it's a nicotine-based or something else.
Yes.
I mean, right now, a student is prohibited from vaping products,
Correct.
right? So your question is, do we want to restrict the public from vaping on school property?
Correct.
I personally am okay with it because it falls under the same use restrictions as tobacco products. Typically in the workplace and other places, actually, it might be looser in some workplaces, but I'm okay with it. But I'll let the board have their comment. Tim?
I'm okay by adding it in. I think it goes to the same theory that the reason the legislature banned smoking was for health reasons, and I think we can do the same thing with vaping products.
Josh and Stan?
That sounds okay.
Josh?
Good.
Okay.
So we're going to say smoke or otherwise use tobacco or
Vaping products?
vaping or electronic.
I don't know what the correct nomenclature is.
Okay.
So we
All
put
right.
both, vaping or electronic smoking devices.
Right.
And I'll make that a motion.
So that's Tim's motion. I'll second for discussion. Ruth Ellen, do you have any other thoughts regarding this draft policy?
It's,
Nope, it was just
is-
with what had come up in discussion last week or the
Right.
last meeting. This was, oh yes, this needs to be corrected. The other policy that had expressly banned weapons was rescinded in June. So that's no longer an issue. But this was the one that was, oh yes, it's here too.
Okay. Any other discussion? Not hearing any discussion. All those in favor of the motion?
aye.
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 Got them all.
Okay, thank you.
Next, under new business, we have a listed for negotiation for teachers. Go ahead, Ruth Ellen. I think we had a...
Okay. So,
Bring us up to speed on
the
that.
board received an email requesting
To open negotiation.
to open negotiations for the teachers. There was voted in March, while the collective bargaining agreement did not pass, there was an article passed that allows for one special meeting to address the monetary items of that collective bargaining agreement. What's been expressed to me is that they would like to negotiate now, so that there's not the dual negotiations, because there's another bargaining agreement that will be coming up in the fall. And so they'd like to open up now.
What type of procedural steps, based upon a collective bargaining agreement, do we need to take regarding this request? Do we have to?
You vote
Notify them formally?
to say yay or nay, and I respond back to them with, that's where that is. And odds are they're watching tonight anyway.
Right. I certainly, because me and Stan are on this negotiation team, I certainly don't have an issue with open negotiations now. And as far as potential another special meeting, I think that's a discussion for another day, for me, to have. You know, just because we've been authorized doesn't mean that I feel there's a compelling reason to hold a special election or town meeting at this point. I mean, we should start early and see where it goes. That's my opinion. Tim?
Yeah, I think you keep it as two separate issues, open the negotiations, see how long of a process it is, and move forward with what we have to do.
I mean, either way, we need to be done before New Year's. It's somewhere in there.
To make,
Oh, we
Just
got
after
plenty of
Christmas.
time. Stan, your thoughts?
You
You're
know,
on the
hit the
committee with
warrant.
me?
I'd like to get going and try to work on it so we can get a contract for the teachers.
Okay. So I'll make a motion to open up negotiations with the teachers' union.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I'll second.
That's fine.
Stan seconded.
Got it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So Ruth, if you'd like to reach out to them and
I will do that.
see when they would like to meet, and we try to come up with a, I think initially we might want to have one meeting, and I think from that meeting we'll spill into the other dates typically.
That's typically what we do. Yep.
Yeah, so we'll have the first,
Yes, we'll do it remotely. Yes. And so I will get with Mrs. Vashon and we'll see what we can set up. I'll send a doodle poll of dates you can send in what will work and we'll pick the one that everybody's hit.
I assume times with those dates?
And times, with a doodle poll, you put dates and times and people can pick what does and doesn't work for them. If you already know that there's a date or a time that doesn't work, let me know.
If Charlie's on that committee, you may want to put an ending time too, like a 9 o'clock versus a midnight.
Can I do that for here? It would be,
It works both ways, Tim.
yeah, it does. At this point, it would be after school hours, which would be after 3 o'clock, which is when teachers are on with students now, so.
Stan, do you have a time of day that's better than others based upon your schedule?
No, after school hours are going to be better since I work during the day.
Okay.
But it depends on the day.
Is-
So I'll look at the poll and I'll fill in the.
Okay. I was gonna say, is there a day that's better?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I'm not sure. I don't think so.
Okay, we'll put them out and see what we can get.
No Mondays.
No Mondays, okay.
Well,
Mondays and we did negotiate on Fridays, but they're not necessarily popular days. They just happen to have fewer meetings.
well,
Okay.
okay. So next we have general assurances fiscal year 2021.
Yes. The general assurances are documents that are required in order for us to receive state and federal grants. And we are not allowed to amend or tweak the documents. They have to be done as is. I've had them up in the
Right.
portal so that you could take a look at them, but pretty much it's 2 documents, both of which need to be signed, and they need the board chairman's signature and my signature in order to be complete. Wanted to make sure that you understood what they were and why they are, and I believe because the CARES Act is also coming in under 2021, that these also will be part of our being able to accept those funds as well. But we cannot touch any allocations for next year until these are signed. So the first one is fairly vanilla, and then the next one is signing just about every page as you go.
Now, for us, for the board to sign,
Well, it will be you.
right, but I'd have to be motioned and by the board to sign on behalf of the board. I guess you, as being the superintendent, would have to assure us that all of this we're in compliance with before we feel comfortable signing.
And in large part, I can tell you, and I didn't grab that last piece of paper, and I will put it up in the folder for next time. We've also received from the state that they review our single audit as well, and that we have no issues and no findings with that. So that is also state review that we have been where we needed to be.
But are there any areas here that you feel we're not in compliance with?
At this point, we have brought things up to speed where they need to be. We have enacted policies that needed to be enacted. We have done our audits, both general and single. Some of these are perhaps on the general assurances not as applicable as others. However, one of these will comply with the Wild and Scenic Rivers Act of 1968. Yes, we're going to be cautious with what our environmental science kids are doing when they go down to the Cocheco River. But so all of these are the fiscal management systems, we have done these things. Written policies, we have these in place. Internal controls, we have worked very, very hard in the last couple of years to get everything in line with this. Yes, we've done this. Yes, we have done
So at this point, there's no deficiencies that you're aware of?
None about which I am aware.
Okay.
We'll make a motion for the board to accept the chair to sign on behalf of the board.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Stan. Any discussion? Not hearing any, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So, motion approved.
Okay, we can sign our lives away after the meeting if you wish.
Put in the pile.
Put it in the file. Okay, there's one. I've got multiple copies.
Next on our agenda, new business is food service extension and summer food program.
Yes. We have received in the last week, one of many, there's been several food service waivers that have been applied for, and they have been kind of in rolling succession. The latest one is in regard to the program that we're running currently. They've extended to allow us to do that as it is run through June 30th. It doesn't have to end when school ends. What I have in the portal, and I have it in print if you need to take a look at it in a little bit more clarity, is a projected food service expenses and revenue sheet that was put together for me by Fresh Picks Cafe / Cafe Services, to kind of give us an idea where things are going to go. Our original budget revenues, we'd anticipated $443,514. Our projected is going to be $330,037. That's through June 5th, and actually our end of school date is June 2nd, so that would be a little bit less than that. Through June 30th would be $351,994. Our expenses are more than that. We had projected before we even got started that we would have a deficit of a little over $34,000, and that's in large part because we have not continued to increase our food service prices. Right now, with our revenues being down, we're looking at being about 7,500 or so over that in deficit for current year if we end the first part of June. If we end in the end of June, it'll up that by about another, not quite $3,000. So we have two options. We can continue doing what we're doing now, and the projection is that we will be about $44,000 in the hole. If we end at the end of school, CAP can pick up starting June 3rd. So if we end June 2nd, CAP can do that. What CAP would need from us, if we choose to end, would be, number one, the ability to use our sites for food distribution, because we are area eligible sites. And then two, there has been a request that their milk deliveries could come once a week to our coolers as opposed to their having to transport milk back and forth as well, which they've done in the past, and that has worked out okay.
So if they're using our facilities, we're giving them access how?
It would
Somebody's
be,
letting them in?
it would
giving
be
them a
during the
card?
day when we had staff here.
Okay.
Yep.
So you-
And then they would have staff that would meet us and they would take receipt of their milk and we'd open a door. So
and we've done this before with them?
we have done this before with them, yes. They have provided meals for our summer school programs in the past. Obviously, if we're remote, that's going to look a little different. They've also done for whatever summer programming. Their food service would be separate from any use of buildings. They are also trying to get their summer programming up and running. They used our school last year. They did our before and after school. But as I've told them, it's very difficult for me to say, not knowing if we're going to be able to be full in for summer school, to say, but you can be here. Because if we can't be here safely with kids, I'm also not going to say that you can be here safely with kids. So we need to make sure that we have guidance from Concord coming down that says, this is what this can look like. And right now, they're receiving probably more strictures than we are. But they're also getting pressure to open up and to be able to at least do small groups. So we're talking about what might be, with the understanding that it's probably going to be at least another couple of weeks before we hear much that's definitive in regard to things being opened for that to happen. They would love to be able to start June 3rd because that would be the day after school ends. I cannot open up the same rooms that they've used because we will still have teachers here while student instruction may be done. We still have additional teacher development, professional development that needs to be run, and we will still be using those spaces. So
So
to
how will
figure-
we provide them space?
Well-
Say after the June 3rd?
I'm looking at the possibility if there are classrooms that have outside access and restrooms, if I could kind of limit them so that they're coming in from the outside and back out that way without necessarily coming into the building.
Do we actually have that situation?
In limited rooms, in one space, we do. I don't know that that's actually going to be viable, but right now that's the option that I'm looking at.
Tim?
Have you looked at the food service contract to make sure we're not locked into a certain number of days? Okay, and we're not?
We're okay here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do you need from us, if anything?
So on the food service, I need a vote that says you're directing me to extend what we're currently doing through June 30th, or you're directing me to end what we are currently doing with the end of the school year.
Any discussion from the board?
And then from that, it would be, then are we tagging with CAP and working with them in that capacity?
I'll make a motion to end the food service consistent with the students in attendance, so through June 5th or the 3rd.
June 2nd is the end of the school year.
Right.
Now, what I will say, too, is that the other piece of this is that the bus drivers are contracted through the end of the school year. They have been delivering food. So they still have days on their contract that won't go through the end of that time if we cut it off June 2nd.
How many days would that be?
They will still have through the 19th of June. So 30th would go further. The 2nd, not quite so much.
We're telling, are we able to look at maybe alternative duties for the bus drivers?
We certainly could, and they could also be working on some of those additional trainings that they have to be doing. They would have time to do some of that.
Well, in some ways, I think they're two separate issues. We've got to, so I'll continue with my motion to end the food service on the last day, which would be June 2nd.
I'll second that.
Discussion? So the motion
What's
is,
a better option for kids? Sounds like that going to the 30th would be more helpful for kids.
but the school's not in session at this point. After June 2nd, it's not in session.
After June 2nd, school is not in session for student instruction. You're correct. For kids, it would mean that we wouldn't be delivering meals. CAP is looking to see if they can get some type of waiver for delivery, but at this point, they've not been granted that because the program that we're operating under and the program that they will have to operate under are very different, and they have very different rules. They're in the process of having asked for a waiver. Who knows when that will happen? So we won't be able to deliver. So we will have some kids that it may be more of a hardship for, but it's likely to become that hardship on June 30 as well. And what CAP has run into is that parents who are working during the day aren't always able to come pick up meals for kids during the day. They are looking at doing twice-a-week delivery in the same model that we've done. It won't be daily. It would be the twice a week. Whether it'll still remain Mondays and Thursdays, I'm not sure, but it'll be something close.
But in the past, has typically the food service stopped when schools ends for the year?
It has.
Okay.
It
So
has.
this would
In
not
the
be-
past, we've not been in this position either.
Right, but this is typical of what would happen.
It's typical of what would happen. We're just not in typical times. Yes.
So, Rhonda, I just have a question. Would the meals resume during extended school year services?
During extended school year services, CAP would be providing meals for us the same way that they have done in the past.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other discussion on the motion? Not hearing any. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No from Stan.
Okay.
I got that, Stan. So moving on to the next one, which is CAP. So they're trying to get permission to assist with this or open,
I mean, CAP is going to be able to do some within Farmington anyway. Certainly, it makes sense for us to work with them as we have in the past. It's better for kids, it benefits the community, and it's not like I'm turning off my freezers and my walk-ins all summer anyway. So if I put milk in them for the week, that's not changing our consumption. And it's better for our kids. They do not have to be in the buildings other than just to come get the milk, because they said they'll set a pop-up up and, even be outside for distribution if need be.
Who's eligible for students?
Typically, it's been if they are between the ages of 5 and 18, they're eligible.
No financial implications. So anybody in the community that has a school-aged child can basically get fed all summer under the CAP program.
That's my understanding. And that's where we are now, too, under our current program. Right now, I have about 218 or so that are taking advantage of that.
Do we know how
It's
many?
not the percentage I was expecting.
Do we know under those 200 some odd students that are taking lunch now, how much we're delivering?
We're delivering about 118 of those, so a little more than half.
is that, when you say is not what you're expecting more or less?
I was expecting a higher number.
Okay. Now, do they need something from us in their pursuit of the changes to the USDA program? Or-
Certainly, it helps if we advocate for the waivers. I know the waivers have been sought, whether or not they will be granted, and a few go in at a time. They haven't done them all at once, and then we don't get them back in a lump. We got one back the end of last week. Today we got another back. Not all of them are ones that we're taking advantage of, because it doesn't make sense for us to now start a program and have 3 to 4 weeks left to try to do it. Had we had it 8 weeks ago, it would have made perfect sense for us to have continued. And some of the waivers are, okay, fine, you've allowed us to do this program, but this says that parents can only pick this up if a child is present with them. So that doesn't always help, because the parent will go out and kids are home with the other parent and they're not taking kids into the community. We don't always have, a car full of kids drive up to collect a lunch. And so that waiver came through today, but we've got, 3.5 weeks left. So that wasn't okay, we'll do that one. Some pieces aren't necessarily going to affect us, but they are affecting other districts. For instance, Rochester is finished with their school year around May 18th. But the waivers for when CAP can start are starting, I think the earliest they can do is June 3rd. So it's creating a gap for Rochester, because nobody thought that anybody would be done that quickly. So
there's no action required for us on this?
for us, as far as with the USDA, there is not. For us, as far as saying, I'd like a board vote that says, yes, we're going to have CAP use our facilities for food distribution this summer, yes.
At one time, and it might have been in 48 Hours of Hunger, but they did a food distribution program at Fernald Park. Was that tied into CAP?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, and that's still, I believe, one of the sites that they can use.
I'm just wondering how the distribution model worked there, and whether transportation is going to be a hindrance to kids getting fed. I mean, was it pretty successful when they've done it in the past, or? There
have been, it is a barrier for some whose parents are at work during the day, kids are home, and unless they are within walking distance, they can't go get it. I'm concerned about kids we have that we're delivering to up on the ridge who may not have a way into town.
Okay.
But
can we, as a school system, kind of track those numbers? Because you've got a lot of volunteer organizations in town. So if we've got kids that potentially could go hungry, they need a delivery, they don't have an alternate method, maybe through a volunteer organization we might be able to work and provide some of those resources.
we can certainly look at that. One of the things, CAP is trying to get the waiver so that they could do delivery, but certainly they could use volunteers to deliver as well. So,
Okay.
and if it's not through CAP, then certainly, others could see about getting meals
Yep.
out to kids.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So, back to the cap use in our facilities. Now, historically, we've done this in the past, or we do it every year?
CAP took over our summer programming. We'd had a relationship with them for a while. Had not, we'd had our own program through FAME. That ended last year, and so CAP was one of 3 or 4 different organizations that had bid for our summer program, and they did that last summer. And certainly would like to see that relationship continue. They've done our before and after school program this year as well. And I see the need for that increasing. But I think the food distribution part is the first part. And they had done, even when we had the 21st Century Program, CAP was doing our meals for the summer. They were still doing the food distribution for summer. They did meals for ESY Summer School and the FAME program during the summer. And so the food part is a fairly long-standing relationship. The childcare aspect is a newer.
Well, I don't have an issue with it if we're going to be using our facility on the outside for distribution and inside while we're normally open. You know, so if we're not incurring additional costs, I don't have an issue with it. Tim?
There's a motion. Do we have, was there a
I'll make a
second?
motion to allow CAP to use our grounds and facilities for the summer program? Is that what you would need, or no?
Okay, well, for the summer food program to start with, and then we can look at the summer childcare program as a separate issue?
Yeah, because that's going to have some restrictions that may not be
Right.
imposed by whatever the governor's amendments to the, stay
Right.
at home.
Okay, so there's a
Orders.
motion.
Motion.
I'll
yeah.
second it.
Okay. Okay. I'll get Josh
Josh
in
almost
there.
got it.
We'll get Josh in
Any
there. He hasn't
discussion?
gone there
He's
yet.
got the delay, I'm fine with it.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Can I get my substitute teacher first?
Any other discussion? Not hearing any, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right. And then, so for use for the summer childcare program, do we want to wait until maybe the next meeting? Do we have
Yeah.
a little bit more?
I mean, if they, hopefully this governor will have some more direction, or I don't know if that's coming from the governor, or that's going to come from Department of Education.
I'm going to bite my tongue.
Okay.
Okay.
I know you don't want to belabor the discussion. Next, under old business, we have performance contract. So Ruth Ellen supplied me a couple things that I had asked for, and I know I went through the electrical bid that was supplied, lighting bid details. And a couple of things that, when I reviewed through it, to me, I mean, the initial cost, I'm just using this for me to try to summarize and analyze what they're doing, assuming this would be like standard. So if this is the standard way that they work it, we have the initial, there's a chart, a breakdown of project cost. And this was using one of the lighting costs. And it shows an installation cost of, say, $188,000. And then with a 5% contingency of $208,000. So that would be subcontractor cost plus 5% contingency, which I believe they said that if the contingency is not expended, it comes back to us. I think that's what they said.
It was my
I
understanding.
don't remember what they said their success rate of that was. They might have said something. I don't know if it was.
I don't know that that was specifically mentioned
Right.
by Tom, but I know other districts, superintendents with whom I've spoken, said that they typically see something.
Okay. So then when we go to the construction costs, we have a list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 items. The first one being Siemens project development cost at 2.5%. My assumption is this is for the work that's been done to date. So then there's outside professional engineering costs of 0.3%. I assume if it's here, maybe they felt they needed it. Then you've got a project management cost of 5%. So I guess the first question is, who's doing the project management? Would it be?
Siemens is the project manager.
Okay, so that's 5% to them. The training and I assume that would be on them. It's only a small amount. The commissioning, what is the, I don't know if you know what that would be, or it's commissioning of 2%.
That I'm not sure, I would have to
Then
ask.
construction M&V, I think that was referenced somewhere else, but I don't know off the top of my head. M&V. The permits, which can't, and performance bond of 1%. And then some travel and warranty, that includes another 1%. So that totals, in that list, totals 13.5%, which in essence, a lot of that is going, unless I'm mistaken, to Siemens. If I had to guess, out of that 13% listed, it's 8%. Could be 9. I didn't tally it up. So then you have, lower you have construction costs, which is moved down on top of the installation cost. They're showing it 11% there, so even though it's the same number, I don't know why. But either way, the total's the same. Then you have a subtotal, and then they're applying overhead of 12%, and then they're applying a profit of everything total of 10%. So when you take the original number of 208,000, which is the installation with a contingency, and you compare that to 287, it is 37%. So looking at this and trying to wrap my head around what are they supplying and at what cost, if this is a model, then this is, say, 30 to 33% of the installation cost is their oversight and overhead and profit. That's the way I'm reading this.
And what that includes is not only that they warranty everything.
But are they carrying forward the manufacturer's warranty, or are they warrantying it past where if that light fixture goes out that was installed 14 years ago, they're going to come out and install it for free, or they're just carrying on the manufacturer's warranty of that equipment?
My understanding is that it goes beyond the manufacturer's warranty.
Right, but...
We'll get that in writing, but...
But I guess that would be a question, because this is part of the reasons that they're saying you should go with us. These are one of the reasons. So what is the context of that warranty that we're, quote, paying extra for? Here in this item, we're paying 0.5%.
Because part of it, as I understand, is the savings that they're guaranteeing for us is what we would then be using to pay for this over time. And if the equipment is breaking down and it's no longer usable, that savings isn't going to be realized. And they have to eat that if that savings isn't realized. So they're looking at making sure that this stuff works too.
But they're also using a very conservative as far as savings. In this case, a lot of there's some savings here, but there's also some rebates, which we would get on, if we were to take this on ourselves, we would get the same amount of rebates because it's based upon fixture, not based upon, it's based upon fixtures and cost per fixtures, not based upon this price. Like I said, I'm trying to wrap my head around this because this is a significant amount of increase over the cost, the actual installation cost.
If you were to...
So if we were going to, how much of this is steak and how much of this is sizzle? Of this 35%.
If you were to bond this out over time, how much of this would end up being paid out to the bondholder without the additional warranties as well?
But you realize this does not incorporate the loan amount. The loan amount, which we'll be paying to the bank, because we will be paying the bank for the loan, so if the loan is 3%, that is essentially the same interest cost as if you were to bond it. Where the bond might be 1.5% different, it could be a little bit different depending on our bondability as a town, because that's based upon our basically credit score. So each town doesn't necessarily get the same bond rates. It's based upon your ability to pay. So in essence, that's not captured here either, because that would be an agreement to from the bank to say whatever that rate would be. It could be 2.5%, could be 3% right now, could be 4%. But that would be similar if you were to bond it. So for me to say, okay, I'm okay with this, what are we getting for this 33% or 30 to 35% over the installed cost in warranty, support, some of the stuff we're paying for, the performance bond we're paying for because it's in here, the warranty, we have a small portion that we're paying for, that we're being charged in this. And the one thing that I think I asked for, but they didn't get us, Ruth Ellen, was in this, like they had the scope of bidders, which is good. They had 3 bidders, one was ruled not qualified. But I did not, what I thought I asked for was the RFP that went to those individual bidders or the response from them, because if you got the response from them where they bid it was 97 or 904 fixtures.
Let me make sure that wasn't included in what he had sent.
And this is the cost per fixture, because reviewing this, I want to review that, the fixture that they're quoting, how is this list price, is this discounted price, is this a good cost for what they're proposing? I mean, that's just me doing my due diligence. I know I might be over the top, but when you're looking at the cost per fixture, because we're signing into this agreement, and it's a lot of money. Like in this one school, it's $287,000, and it's the same for 3 schools.
Okay.
So it's $1 million in lighting.
So what I have back from him actually late this afternoon, they did get new numbers on just an oil boiler replacement at each school as requested. The number's a lot lower, but not really much in way of savings, and of course, no incentive. Just want to let you know we have all those revisions. Additionally, we'll want to know as soon as possible on project scope. Ventilation equipment is at least 14 weeks out for ordering and need to finish the engineering. They'd have the summer to do any work that's related to classroom. Bids from the bank should be coming in this Friday.
Yeah, I saw some of that was included, as far as the bank portion.
Right.
So that was one thing that I would like to see, just so I can kind of vet this one section, which kind of gives me at least understanding of how they've gone through all their quoting and estimating of these improvements. And I know in this, I'm glad Larry's here, because there was a question that came up, they were going to change some of the ventilation on those 13 or 18 units.
Grab a mic. Mike.
Yeah, and I guess I was trying to figure out if they addressed it enough so with the split out in this chart.
I believe that when we were on the conference call that Kevin, the engineer, had spoken that if they, as far as the controls, the direct controls, that if they didn't change them all out, that wouldn't be applicable to do the direct controls. So they couldn't single out separate units.
This one and this one, if you didn't do them all,
if you didn't do them all, they can't. It wasn't feasible to go to just direct. They can change out the units, change out new equipment in them, just not go to the digital controls on them.
If the whole thing isn't new, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to try to tie in
Because you could,
this one and this one, but you won't have the
but they
others.
could still, update the units, not completely change the units, but I'm believing you put new motors and stuff, yeah.
Because one thing that they talked about was air quality or temperature control in classrooms, and some of these things that they slated was going to improve that.
Yeah, I believe that would be if we went the total package.
So updating these 18, what do they call them?
Unit ventilators.
Unit ventilators isn't going to make a dramatic improvement in that?
I would have to get clarification with it, because my understanding was they could do half and then half. That was what Tom was presenting. Then Kevin had spoken. You couldn't really hear Kevin.
You could do half and then half, but you wouldn't necessarily then be tying in everything digitally because you haven't done them all. So he wouldn't be able to say.
You wouldn't have the total control that
you
they
won't
were
have
talking
control over the
about.
old part because it's not going to tie in.
Tie into the new.
To the new start.
To control, existing control
Because the
system.
ones, they'd still be pneumatic controls.
Right. Because if we don't do, in one of their proposals, where they had the complete monitoring system.
Right.
Updated, which they took out in one of the proposals. Because it was
Yes.
like, I don't know, 500, 600, it was a
Yeah,
big
it
number,
was.
whatever it was.
Like this school right now, there's no digital control of anything. It's pneumatic, so basically, if somebody changes the thermostat setting, it will change the temperature in the room. So to speak. If we have an air leak in one of the unit ventilators, which we have sometime,
Yeah.
it just kicks it wide open, so it's throwing heat wide open. So it prevents freeze-ups or anything. So
Right.
basically, that's the only control there is for these now, is if there's a leak in the line somewhere between the boiler room, the compressor, and the thermostat, then to that room, then you have no control until you can replace either the thermostat or find the leak in the
leak,
whole.
yeah. And even with the first, I guess, wave of upgrades that they're recommending, that would stay in place.
I believe so.
Because you didn't update all the controls,
Right.
which was in
Right.
that large number that
Yeah.
they,
So I guess what I would want to look at, because of the timing, if this is something that you're considering with getting additional information, if he's going to have bids from the bank on Friday, would it make sense to meet again next Monday to make, with all of the information, I can go back to him and say, these are the 3 or 7 things they had additional questions for, to be able to say, yes, we're looking at the whole package now, this is something we're willing to consider, or no, it's not. I guess, I'm not sure how far down we want to keep going, and if it looks like we'll have everything back to you by next Monday, does it make sense to meet again, even if this is the limited agenda item?
I know some, Siemens might be in a hurry to get going. I'm not ready to get going until I'm comfortable with the signing up for what we're signing up for and make sure that it's a value that I think is in the best interest of the district.
But at least if you have the information, then you would be able to consider and then see if there's anything else that you would need.
I mean, I'm not opposed to
Moving
meeting,
forward.
but it's gonna, the other members would have to agree. Tim?
I have a question. I know Valley View was built after this building, because I was here when this was built.
2002.
Yep. Who designed those heating systems in both these buildings?
I'd have to
No.
go back through the
Are
records.
they Siemens hardware? No?
No,
Okay.
no. Siemens just put the controls in when they came in, I believe.
So, I guess another question I have for you, Larry. Some of this stuff is in the list of all their improvements. Some of it is
Recommended down the road. It's
recommended.
different phases.
But if you were to say, this is what we need to fix this year for improve, whether it's a heating system or what would you say to us is, this is the stuff you really, really should consider getting done this year?
The one thing is the upgrade, the software upgrade to the Decigo, only because the insight that they have now for the controls that we do have, the digital controls that I can control
Yeah.
Valley View with and somewhat Henry Wilson, that's obsolete now. They can't be upgraded, so you can't add anything to it, so,
That's their software.
right.
So we're on an older system of their software that's been rendered on.
That has Yes, because it was never upgraded through the years.
So where
It hasn't been
it hasn't
upgraded.
been kept up.
Yeah.
So it's so far behind now, you'd be going from like
They can't
Apple
add anymore.
Macintosh to,
So they
Snow
can't
leopard.
upgrade our software, they'd have to start over.
Right, because the insight that they had in the past, as I said, it wasn't kept up to date.
Wasn't kept up to date on our end or their end?
no, it wasn't kept up to date on our end.
As far as this annual subscription or
As
what?
far as, yes, putting it in initially, then going away from Siemens to a couple different companies, and then coming back and never
And in-
upgrading anything
And
again.
in the process of cutting away from Siemens, they disconnected a few things.
Yeah,
and
so-
yeah.
Like, this school has got some things that were disconnected by a different company because they
Didn't understand it.
didn't understand the automation part of it, so they just unhooked some of it.
So what are you talking on the cost for the software?
Wasn't it
That was in
believe
there. I think.
76,000? Is that the number or was less than that because of, depending, that was for the entire system? Oh, I don't know. I'm guessing.
I
Let me go
don't
back.
have the
and see
figure,
if
but
I can-
I know it was a substantial, but it's to basically upgrade the whole connection to the systems, be able to add more graphics to get into more controls of the system. Like right now, the server, the old server that they had to reconstruct an old server, I believe, to connect to the new servers that were put in the schools. So it's basically right now, I can half get to some of the controls because when I try to go, like at Valley View, if I try to get into the control section, each time it starts scrolling down, there's a 99-point system. It'll get to about 45 and then freeze. So basically, I can't do adjustments that I should be
And
able
that's
to do.
because of the software or the server?
It's a combination, I believe.
And actually, Charlie, I did find, there is a copy of an RFP that was in the documents folder that you and I share. Just so you.
We'll have to look at it
Yeah,
after.
okay.
Because I looked around, maybe I didn't see
There's
it.
a project scope overview and an RFP in there.
Yeah, I don't know what they did for an RFP for the lights. All I know that we had 4 companies come through and look at all the lighting
Yeah, like I said, I'm
fixtures and
just
stuff.
looking to get
Yeah.
the costing and number of fixtures with the make that they're seeing to see where that pricing comes in. Is that, what the price should be at 900 units? Or is that the list, the
Right.
retail price for one unit coming out, walking out the door?
I do know, just as a point of reference, that there's ballasts in this building now that we can no longer purchase as replacements.
Yeah, I mean, lighting is certainly the biggest
Right.
savings.
Yeah,
As far as you get the PSNH remade, I guess it comes instantly, actually, during the purchase of the fixtures.
And that is only going to be in place for so long, and it's going away. That's the other thing that we've been told.
That's what they had said. I had asked around, I did not find anybody to concur that yet. So
Okay.
I did ask the question, but I just asked some other people.
I think we,
But typically, that's
PSNH, yeah.
that's been around for a long time because PSNH wants you to use less electricity. So I guess, some of this stuff is, like I said, we need to make some progress on this, and where does it make sense as far as like some of the things that improve for the utilizing of the heat? And what about the 18 air handlers or whatever, the room ventilators? I'll get
Univac, the Univents?
Univents.
well, any progress on enhancement on these would be better because as we stated during the thing, there's the TEC controls for these and stuff,
Right.
some of them that are no longer.
But they had assigned a cost for that.
Yeah.
It really wasn't, I'm trying to think of it.
I'm trying to go back and see what I can
Yeah.
find here.
I mean, it didn't seem like, here it is right here. DC for 27 unit ventilators, total project cost is $66,000. if that's what it is. 27, I mean,
20, say, yeah, I thought there were 13 downstairs and 19 upstairs, but
Something like,
something,
yeah, it was fewer up than down,
right.
because down includes
Because
the cafeteria
upstairs,
and the...
yeah, and upstairs is less because some of them, there's a few ceiling units, not unit ventilators.
and, oh, yeah, I mean, some of that, like, yeah, I'm trying to just, everything that's here is trying to understand, some of this would be great if we did it all at once, but it doesn't make sense to do at least the initial, if we do an initial project, that we do stuff that,
We're actually going to have some savings on.
well, or should be done first.
Right.
Whether it's controls or the unit vents.
Well, if we're
it's-
looking at it being paid for from the savings, we're not necessarily going to see a lot of savings from the controls, other than time, which certainly makes a difference.
Right. Yeah.
Now,
You said you had some additional information he sent you on the boilers?
I'm looking to see, he said that he has it, he hasn't sent it to me yet.
Okay.
So, I mean, certainly I can say, yes, I'd like to see that. And what I have is that you're looking for information on what commissioning involves, what construction M&V involves,
Yeah, I think the M&V was listed somewhere, I just couldn't.
what the warranty covers, and does this go beyond the manufacturer's warranty?
And to what extent? I mean.
To what extent?
I mean, maybe that's listed there, but, I mean, there's a lot of, when you look at this number, and I try to wrap my head around it,
Right.
that we're going to be paying Siemens over 30% of the subcontractor's cost, I go, what am I getting for that 30%?
Okay.
Because in the end, they have project development that you're paying, you have project management that you're paying, and we have commissioning, construction M&V, we're paying for bonding, we're paying for warranty, and then that's that we're paying for, and then we're paying the overhead of 12%, and then we're paying profit on top of that. So we're 22% on top of all the expenses, and before that, there's expenses that Siemens is charging us that are probably 8 or 9 more, depending on which one goes where.
So the $64,000 question is, what do we get specifically for the 30%?
Well, yeah.
Spell it out.
I think some of these things, they might want to label who's this is going to. I mean, I know who the permits are going to, the performance bond. I assume they're buying a bond, and there's a interest payment on that bond, and that services that interest payment. I think typically that's how they work. Travel and lodging, but there's a warranty in here that's 0.5%. So what is that covering? Who's doing a project? Well, I assume they're doing a project. Commissioning, like what is that? M&V, it stands for something, but I don't know what it is. And then on the lighting one, to wrap that up, is the cost. Additional, maybe it's in there about a reply from one of the bidders saying what they're actually bidding, number of fixtures, what the fixture is, because I didn't see the spec for the fixturing. No, I haven't come across it yet. But
I think some of that may be in what was in that other
okay,
folder.
I'll look later.
Okay.
Tim, you got any questions? Or?
No, I'm good. I just, like I said before, I need information in front of me before I can make an intelligent decision, and without the information, it's hard to do that.
Okay, so you want to see the oil boiler information, whatever they have on the banks.
I mean, because that may, based upon our boiler age, should that be in the first scope of work?
Well, the boilers
here are the
yes.
Right.
These are the oldest.
Especially we have two a similar age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we were to consider going with a dual fuel system, does that make sense? Is that where we want to go? But if you're going to do something, and, that's like, okay, whether you're going to have a primary and you're going to use the old one as a secondary, or, I think the cost per unit, fuel unit, is similar for what you get for energy from what I've found out. I mean, the propane may be less service over the years, far as cleaning and other stuff.
And the unit itself is a less expensive if there's a failure, because the other is the larger big cast iron parts that
That's
get.
But have we had any failures with these systems that you know of?
I would have to, I'll look back, but I'm assuming I believe we had a failure at Henry Wilson. That's why those are newer ones.
Yeah.
Because one was replaced in 2003 and
Three?
one was
Yeah.
2005.
Yeah.
That's where I
And
got
one of
the
them
eight
that
from.
came in with Siemens to look at them once again, remembered being in there. He was worked with Cody and Sons, or
Yeah.
Cody then, and said, I remember when there was a failure and we took this one out or something and
They just
replaced it.
replaced it instead of
They
repaired it.
replaced the
Yeah.
whole boilers.
Yeah, I mean, because of the age, I wouldn't be a fan of, quote, keeping it repaired, but
Right.
based upon age, we should replace one of them. And if we're going to go
At this school,
to
yes.
the propane as the backup of the oil, or does it make sense to go, I don't know, it's based upon the age of those units,
Yeah, these were both 95,
1995.
1995.
Not
yes.
18.
No, no.
To replace the oil side of it, what ballpark? 200,000, 100,000, what are you talking numbers?
No, I believe it was less than that. I believe I'd have to look. I didn't get a
Okay.
quote on the oil, but
Because we do have that capital reserve with 100,000 in it for boiler replacement.
We do. We do. So that would be something that we could put toward it.
I mean, regardless of that, does that make,
Is there-
that's for discussion.
Right, yeah.
yeah.
Because if you did migrate to a dual system and you replaced one of those, you could say, okay, then that new replacement becomes the backup, and then in years ago, you replaced it. Say if you were to go to propane, the new main one would be propane, and now you got a backup that's relatively new.
Which we do have underground propane tanks. I'd have to find out what size they are, because we have underground propane tanks at each school, mainly for the kitchens. There's one right outside here, as a matter of fact.
But based upon their site assessment, that may not be enough.
No, it's not. It wouldn't
It's
be
not
big
sufficient
enough.
to
No.
do everything we need. We would
No.
have to add to it.
So we would have to add in the expense that they had as far as
Right.
the siding, the pads, the safety equipment, the venting, whatever
Yeah.
differences.
Yes.
There was another thing, Larry, that I was curious when I looked at their specs. The school system, why have above-ground versus below-ground tanks? Wouldn't
For propane?
Yeah, wouldn't the below-ground propane be better?
I think it's just because of the bulk size of them. They don't usually put...
Code, okay.
Yeah. It's, we usually have, they're usually the giant, the really big tanks you see for industry or something, at least one of them, I believe.
Yeah, because I know when they built the Middleton School, there was several, I want to say 4 or 6 underground tanks to feed that school, but they were all done underground.
Yeah, I'm not sure just how the state regulates the,
Okay.
I know we have strict regulations for the underground tanks we have for the oil tanks. We have to have those inspected every year and.
I would
state-
think it would be the same.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to contaminate.
They've never
the
said
ground.
anything about the propane tanks here, so
Right.
Yeah, but how much do you have here? 1,000 gallons, 500 gallons?
it's probably 500, I would
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, because it's primarily for the kitchens.
it's-
They're not being used
Right.
for.
Kitchens.
And what would the size tanks be? Did they state in the proposal?
I would think they usually go about 4,000 gallons or so. Because the bigger the tank, the more discount you get on the propane too.
Yeah, yeah. So at this rate, we're going to have a tanker deliver, right? We already do that.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
They don't bring it to us by the oil can.
Stan or Josh, any questions, concerns, things you want to see?
No, sir.
Okay, so specifically, what is it that I'm going back to Mr. Seekins for?
You had a list you were writing.
Okay, I do, okay?
But you
So-
captured it pretty well.
Okay,
You were
so
taking notes, so.
what are those things? What's the warranty cover, to what extent? And, if he can give us any specificities on what we get for 30%, that would be lovely. And then information he has on the boilers and the bank.
Yeah, and the response from the bidder on the lighting.
Okay,
regarding
response.
the units and the number of units. And it might be in there.
I'll check with Kevin Christensen too, get more information about the univents.
Yeah, because I think that's kind of seemed to me as something we needed to do.
It would improve the air quality, the heating too. It's as far as adjusting the inside, outside air intake, so.
I mean, in the scope of work, that I don't know if they had the building in their first proposal where they had the building envelope
Building
improvements.
envelope.
Was that in that number?
It wasn't in the first
No, in the
round, it was in
second round.
second
it
round.
was
Yeah.
there.
See, I looked at that and saying, that's something that we should be in the first wave, because
If you have a good boiler and it's all going out through your ceiling.
So to me, it's like, why wouldn't that be in the first wave of stuff? Because
Yeah, because I know the first step that we came in, we had somebody come in and they went through, we opened up ceilings, took them around each school, they looked at the outside perimeter and everything, and I believe it was, he talked about the last meeting too, of getting the building envelope sealed up first.
Yeah, see, that seemed to me as something that I was like that, well, that's something we definitely need to do. The Univents did, and if we have a controls issue that we need to address, besides you get into this lighting contract, well, that's, some of those things they have expertise in, that we use in their control system.
Yeah.
So in that ways, we have a service contract with them.
Right.
So if there's a premium there, we get the benefit on a longer term because we have a working relationship with
Right.
them on service. Some of this other stuff, I'm concerned that are we getting, is there enough extra to justify that cost? And the other stuff, we're using their equipment, so we're kind of, either we're going to consider not using their equipment for controls.
Well, I
if we're gonna stay
believe
with
even if we went with their controls, with the new system, the new software update, they're compatible with they were compatible with
Right.
Johnson controls or any other controls. They're not tied just to Siemens by it.
Right. But I mean,
in
some
the long,
They will have done all of the
right, they would,
this back
the
part of
installation,
it, but we could pay to have somebody else do if we wanted to.
in another scenario, you could say, okay, we want all the controls replaced, and we want all new control circuitry and a new system.
yep,
Because really, that's what they've got in here. They got pieces of it here, but between the Univents replacement and then saying, okay, we want to update the building control systems and software for the entire 3 buildings. And it doesn't need to be Siemens. Currently we're using Siemens.
Right.
There might only be three players in the country. There might only be 2. I don't know that
Yeah,
answer.
but there aren't hundreds of them out there.
Right. So, well, it's going to be an Allen Bradley. They might be they're probably the most prevalent in this area with the most experience. You can't get somebody out of Ohio and do it because then you can't afford them to get here to fix it. They start charging you from when they pack their
Yeah,
clothes. So, yeah, I don't know if you think we can actually pull this together for the next meeting, or we just...
I would say definitely for the 18th. Are you looking at wanting to review anything on?
As soon as we get it, the better off we'll be.
Okay, so if you look at meeting next Monday, then if you need additional review time or have additional questions from the next round of things that you get, you would then be able to, have a further discussion on the 18th rather than the 18th be a stopping point that then gets kicked further down the road. A thought.
So, Tim, your thoughts on another meeting next week on this?
I think it's going to depend on how quick they get the materials. If I get the materials on a Sunday night, I don't want to meet Monday. I want time to digest, look, crunch numbers, research.
Yeah.
So,
I can reach out to Mr. Seekins. He says here he's looking at financials on Friday. I don't know what
So
time
how about,
Friday.
we can,
I
what we
can
could do
find
is
out
give
from
him a
him.
list,
Yep,
see when he thinks he can get it to you, and then based upon that answer, we can
whether or not
call the
we
board
need
and see if you want to have a meeting.
okay.
Because if they can't get it to us in a timely manner, then there's no sense of trying to schedule a meeting and hurry up with not enough stuff.
And be
So,
here till midnight.
you don't have anything elsewhere to be, so.
Okay,
Anything
I will
else
be in
on
touch
that?
with him tomorrow. Thank you.
Okay, next thing on the agenda is roof bids. And glad Larry's here because I think you met with Jeff Greenhaw.
Yep.
You thought you were gonna put that microphone
Yeah, I
down,
might
didn't
as well
you?
just-
So you.
I just like questions, how that went, your thoughts or questions.
He just asked me to take him up on the roof. We
Yep.
looked around. He asked me a couple times if it was a proprietary system, and I told him no. And
Right.
he told me that he was getting back to you, and
Yeah.
he said he wasn't really sure what he was looking for.
Yeah. So,
Now that he went on the roof and saw it, that he could look at the specs and get a better idea of what he was.
Yeah, I think I spoke to him after he met with you.
Yeah, it was Tuesday we
Yeah.
met.
I encouraged him because Jeff Greenhaw was the contract project manager for the public safety building. And so I had reached out to him and said, hey, this is what we're looking at. Is there any expertise or, you can kind of lend the board to look at this to see if this makes sense? And so that's why he's met with you. I'm glad he could do that. And he was going to go through the bid. He, couldn't be at tonight's meeting because he had some family that was scheduled for surgery, so. But what my thoughts were, based upon him basically being a project manager, construction manager for the last 30 years, is to say, ask the question, if we were to consider putting it back out for RFP, a more open RFP with multiple systems, because this was geared to just the PVC system, which a lot of our systems aren't, some are, what would those bids look like in comparison to what we have? Because right now, I think the total is 7, I don't know, I didn't total it up, but it's 7 figures, 700,000 and change? No,
I
what was
believe
it?
so, yeah.
And, we're limited on the funding, and we don't have any contingency that I'm aware of. So in some ways, does it make sense to ask him, what would it cost for him to draft and solicit or help us draft an RFP and then compare that to our existing quotes?
And I will tell you that the last time that we worked with them, they came in considerably underbid
Worked with?
Trumco.
Trumco, thank you, just you're a complete blank. When we worked with Trumco in the past, they came in considerably underbid.
But the quotes that they submitted were, I thought, firm quotes.
They are quotes as far as this is what we are able to give you at this point for us to be able to get something on the warrant that says we're going to need at least this much to do. When they got up there and did the last roof sections a couple of years ago, they came in underbid, and because of the way that it had been written, I couldn't do additional roof sections even though I had the funds for it, because it was written for this section, and this section. So those were the only sections I could do. But
So I guess I was confused because I thought those prices,
The last time we did it, we didn't have the firm bids ahead of time.
okay, these are firm bids.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
I stand corrected. Thank you, Larry.
And I did, when I talked with Ralph, I did explain to him that where we had gone with this section, and the plan was at first to do the whole roof.
yeah,
The way this system is, you can't tie another membrane system into it without guaranteeing that there won't be leaks at the seams there. It's designed to
Well,
continue
you mean
with
if
this,
the guarantee of no leaks goes away.
of
Yeah.
any joints that are formed with this system and a new system. if you
Well,
go
of course the manufacturer would say that.
No,
If there's
it's
anything else
just-
but our product, then we're not going to guarantee the tie-in,
Oh,
right?
just what I'm just telling you what I was
That's what
told.
Yeah, well, I think that there's,
And the reason we went with these systems in the past was because, as I stated, is once the warranty is, or once the roof expectancy is done,
yeah,
you don't have to tear it up and replace it. You can seal over it again.
and did it have an estimate cost for that, and what the warranty extended period would be? I mean, when they say that, they say, okay, you can recoat and extend the warranty, right?
It would recoat.
It would
the
recoat and be
warranty
another 20-year
was
warranty.
another 20-year roof by recoating it. It wasn't
It wasn't, you just recoat it and it's guaranteed for a
When
year.
you say recoating, you're talking about the coating that's on top of the PVC,
Yes.
correct.
okay? So,
You wouldn't have to tear up like with a membrane.
You don't have
Yeah.
to tear up.
You would
and
have to
start
take
over.
up the membrane, replace it.
right. Yeah.
This you wouldn't.
I mean, a lot of times you may not need to take up the membrane, most time it's taken up to redo all of any added insulation and also repair any vents or drains.
Right,
So-
but you still have to put a membrane down over it again.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think that, well, that the bid process, I think, I'm reasonably confident if we put an open bid process and got some assistance here, I think that we could have some potential substantial savings.
Okay, but
And if we do that, we'll see. I think that he can lend some expertise to assisting us to writing that RFP, and typically how it's done in industry, and then take an account for any additional sureties we need as a municipality or a school district, and, put that out for because most of our roofs are rubber membrane now, is EPDM, SBR, and those are all past their warranty. And most of our issues are not with the membranes, with the tie-ins, drains, or where they tie into the buildings. So, and the warranty that this system is, I mean, I'd like to see the follow-on warranty, so if you have that, where they say what's the cost to recoat and what's the extended warranty. I don't know if they'd extend it to 20, but maybe it's a 10-year extension, I don't know. I mean, it's saying 20, but,
And one of the things that I'm concerned about is the further that we kick this down the road too. As we get our heavy spring rains,
yeah.
we're replacing a lot more ceiling tiles these days. Just putting that out there.
Yeah.
Henry Wilson.
Henry Wilson.
Yeah, I mean, that's in that front section, where all the tie-ins. I mean, that's you can see, I mean, most of the areas, when Larry took me up there, most of that's with the tie-ins between the roofs and the buildings. I mean, there might be some leakage, I know there's some repairs slated up on the other section, but and then you get the brick fascia, which is a concern too, that I don't know, is that part of the bid, or we gotta address that separately?
That was part of it.
I mean, but you felt that you had done this before with success with staff in another area?
Well, that was,
You don't
Use
think
mine.
we should do that?
I
In that area?
don't think we could do it at that area.
Okay,
It was more of a solid wall down in
okay,
on the ground that we had John Titus do.
yeah,
He basically pointed, but then that was a solid mortar on it. It wasn't the brick fascia.
yeah. Okay. I thought that was similar, but no. Okay,
No, he could possibly do something with, but I don't know.
I mean, it seems to be
We
something
don't want to
that's...
set him up.
Well,
I-
that's something that seems to be, it's a little bit different than standard roofing repair, because
Yeah.
it's basically masonry with brick and mortar, and that potentially we should get somebody to address that's skilled in that profession, because they're just gonna subcontract it out, because roofers aren't bricks and mortar guys.
And just if we do rewrite an RFP, we should include the skylights in it, as
Oh,
they did
definitely.
with this, because
because-
those are all leaking now.
I mean, the skylights should be replaced, all the drains need to be replaced. I mean, those are, all the tie-ins need to be redone. You know, that's where most of the leaks come from. They don't come from open areas with
Right.
rubber membrane. It's either from damage or it's every time you tie into anything. Your thoughts, Tim?
I'm good. Waiting on the review to see what a new RFP, to see if it's worth putting out a new RFP.
I'd like to ask him to see what it would cost for us to ask him to do it. You know what I mean? If he was to help us assist with it, what would be the cost? Because if we say, we want your help, we got to know what the bill's going to be, because we say it's either too much money. And if it's, so, I mean, I think we should ask him, give us a proposal to assist us writing this, what would it be? And at the next meeting, we could say yes or no.
So is that something that you're asking for a board vote
Yeah.
to?
Yeah, because if we're going to ask for something. Stan and Josh, your thoughts about asking Jeff Greenhaw to give us an estimate for assisting us with a new RFP?
Is that a motion?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, I'll make that motion to ask Jeff Greenhaw to write us a proposal to assist with writing and reviewing roof bids in an RFP process.
Okay.
Seconded by Josh. Any discussion? Not hearing any? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No from Stan. Anything else? Larry? We can let him escape?
You can probably escape.
Can I leave the mic?
Yeah.
You could, yes, you can leave.
Take it with you if you want.
Souvenir.
Thanks, Larry.
Good night, Larry.
Next, we have budget.
So, let me make sure I've got pieces here. So what I had in your packet, there's a few pieces. There is there's a piece from our auditor. There's also a response from our attorney in regard to year-end spending.
Where are you finding those? What folder?
This is, let me log back in because my computer has told me I took too long.
Yeah. Budget? Is it
It
budget?
is under budget, I believe.
This is something, you must just put it, huh?
Yeah, when did that get posted?
I did not receive the pieces from the attorney until today.
So which one are you looking at first?
I am looking at,
I found the folder.
okay.
In the budget folder, there's no budget for May 4th.
Yeah, there's a budget folder for May 4th that I see, and there's 4 files in it.
Yep, there's one that is, the email from Barbara Lohman was today. The piece from Plodzik was sent in general to all of their clients.
And where is this?
It's in the May 4th folder there's a budget folder.
Not in my May 4th folder.
Did you download that before, or you're on it live now?
I'm there right now.
All right, let me make sure that it is,
I see it here, and I'm logged into,
yep, I show you on it, but I will share it again.
so which one you want to start with?
So I'll start with Plodzik and Sanderson, the one that says COVID June year end. And on the second
Because
page,
I don't have access to this document, so how am I supposed to participate?
Well, hold on a second.
Dan, I just resent the folder to you. Let me go back and see if it's the document you don't have access. Do you have the folder that says budget?
I'm in the May 4th folder and there's no budget folder there. So if it's in there, it's not in there for me.
Okay, for me, it shows that you're in there, and I just resent it, so see if there's a permissions to get in there,
You see it, right?
Stan.
I can see it, yeah.
Josh, do you see that file?
I see Stan has permission, yeah.
Do you see it now?
I do.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Sorry about that. So in the one up at the top, on the second page of that,
The second page?
second
from-
page, third paragraph that begins additionally,
Okay,
they are giving advice to districts that any expenditures that are made in the current year for items that may not be expressly used between now and the end of the school year, that those would be booked as expenses against next year. And therefore, any supplies that we would purchase now out of funds that we have in current year but are not anticipating that we would have next year, so we'd be looking to purchase those now to exact a savings for next year, they're saying that that would be booked as an expense against next year, that it would be reported in the year for which they will be utilized. There is an email from Barbara Lohman, also in that same folder, disagreeing with some of that. While you cannot use this year's money to prepay expenses, for instance, next year's insurance bill,
right.
we are able to expend funds for anything this year that we have the appropriation for this year. And so she's saying, you know, even if it's a textbook that you're purchasing now that may be used with students next year, teachers may well be using it now to prepare for next year. That's not it's not a disallowable expense, or something that would have to be booked against next year because it's booked in the year in
Yeah.
which it is expended.
If we budget it this year and we spend it this year,
Right, and because we're not looking at funds that are, we know that we can't carry it across. I don't have the
Right.
latitude that
it's not
The
an
town
encumbrance.
does.
It's not an encumbrance.
it's not an encumbrance. However, what I can do is I can encumber funds for things that were budgeted for this year that won't be able to happen until next. And I can encumber those
Yes.
with a board vote to carry that across, with the understanding that that can only be expended for that for which it was encumbered. So if I encumber funds now for NEASC for next year because it was supposed to happen this spring and now it will be in the fall, that would be allowable. I would need a board vote for that, and it could only be expended for NEASC. And if NEASC doesn't spend it down to the very last penny, I can't spend those dollars on anything else that isn't for that NEASC review. So there are things that we are looking at that were supposed to happen this year that for one reason or another didn't. We can encumber ahead for. But there are other pieces that we can, as long as it is in the appropriate line in the MS-27, we are allowed to expend. Now, it doesn't mean that we might not get slapped for that by the auditors next year. However, there is preponderance of law that says we would be able to do so even if best accounting practice might not be there. That's where the board needs to make some decisions about where they want to fall on this, which is why I've presented you both pieces of evidence, and the other pieces in that folder are from Gordon Graham, who's also from Sewell Kidder, on what pieces, what funds can be carried forward and under what circumstances. And then the other section in there gives you the example of what a town is allowed to carry forward for funds. Schools are only allowed to carry forward the 2.5% emergency fund, and then there's numerous hoops through which we would have to jump to be able to expend that if we needed to. And then the question is, do we carry that forward, or do we look at not taking the full 2.5% this year? And that's something that later in June, the board is going to want to address, but we're not there yet.
Let me ask you, on the money end of the CARES Act, you said earlier tonight, it might be better to wait next year versus this year on kind of how we take that money. Am I correct in that CARES Act money is going to go into the Title I line, or is going to be distributed as? Okay, the CARES Act is what's the $34 million that's coming from the state?
It's a separate grant that we will be given, but it's being doled out by using the Title I formula for this year, but it is being then allocated equitably using the Title II formula. So that means that if there is a charter school or a private school that would have access to our professional development funds, they would also potentially have access to the same portion of our CARES Act funds.
Okay.
So, but there's some gray areas there, and they're still trying to figure out exactly what that's going to look like. So I don't have that yet, and I don't have the exact amount that I would be getting. But that will come in under 2021 as far as the state's concerned, although I may see it sooner. And it will be, it's not tied to Title I. So we have much broader spending latitude than we would in Title I. And they're also in the process of trying to give us that as well, because they went one route and then kind of changed that, and then they're going to add this, and they're going to open up that, and so they're still arguing.
Do we have a projected date on when that decision will be made? I mean, I know today they made decisions in other areas.
Right. The last I talked to the commissioner was Friday. On Friday, I didn't have a date. They had everything written because they were told Title I, and they had everything written up. Okay, here's your Title I equity formula and all of this, and then they were told, nope, it's 2A, and had to rewrite everything. So we talk again on Wednesday and again on Friday, so maybe by then, but I don't know. It's supposed to have been to the state and then within a month, and then back out to us within another month.
Yeah, I went another weekend. I mean, this is the first that I've seen this folder. I glanced at Barbara's recommendation. If we're going to schedule a meeting a week out or whatever on the other issue, I'd kind of like to put this off just so I can read.
Is there something before us that we need to make a decision on based upon what you have here? Based upon, or is this just?
Well, it's informational, but in part because I have held off a little bit on what we had agreed to on our spending based on this going, okay, I need some guidance as to which way we're looking to lean, because I don't want to go down the path of, all right, we're going to do this, and then find that all of that is booked against next year, and lo and behold, I'm overexpended. On the other hand, I feel like what Barbara has just given us gives us a little bit of latitude. But we need to digest a little bit too.
Yeah,
so.
I'd like to compare it to when I sat on the budget committee. We had a very similar decision or thought processing that Barbara has here when we questioned on the budget committee certain expenditures. So I'd kind of like to, if there's no pressing decision that has to be made tonight, I'd kind of like to time to read and digest what's in the folder, and then maybe talk about it at the next meeting, unless you need something.
Well, I mean, the pressing decision is, if I'm going to get things ordered, I need to do it soon.
Right.
Another week is probably not going to kill us. Much beyond that, I need to get things done quickly.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll just add it to.
Because we need to get things processed.
Add it to the potential meeting next week,
Okay.
because
I guess
we gotta wade through this a little bit, because Yeah, if you get a chance to review it, because we've got advice from council, and they have their interpretation. I mean, if there's a gray area and they want to slap us on the wrist next year because they didn't think it's the best way, but it's legal able to do, let them do it, if that ends up being a decision,
Okay.
you know?
Yeah, I guess the other thing that I would ask is, I go a couple times into the weekends to review what's coming up at the meeting. If something gets put in there late, I don't have an issue with it, but can you put an email out just so
Sure.
that we know something's in there? Had I known at 4 o'clock, I might have had time to go through what was in there before tonight, but I'd like a little bit to do some research and to digest what Barbara's telling us. 'Cause I agree with what she's saying in there.
So maybe to kind of, based upon what Tim just said, is maybe we have a kind of like a cutoff date, like one day before the meeting, and if something's late breaking after that, then you said to say, hey, I put something in there.
Sure.
Whatever that makes sense, whether it's one day before.
Or if it's, anything that goes in after 5 o'clock Friday gets an email?
Sometimes you guys work on weekends. I don't.
It's not a sometimes.
I check my drive Monday mornings, and I did this morning, and I was in there for a little while, and
Yeah.
I figured I was set for the meeting tonight, and then I saw
No,
this.
I wouldn't want to back it up that far, because you're gonna be emailing all the stuff. So,
Unless I've got everything in there for Friday night, and then there's a folder of Saturday morning editions, Sunday morning editions, and then those, you get
Yeah.
a single email that there's been
yeah.
something
I
added.
don't know,
And I'm-
I would just put it as thought, and you come up with something.
Okay.
You pick a date and time to say, after this is as best reasonable, I can get you the stuff in advance, and after that, I'm gonna notify you if I put something in there before.
And I'm good with
Okay.
Monday morning. I mean, I always check Monday morning anyhow, but
Well, and I don't know that works for others who are
Right.
working all day Monday.
Right,
But
you gotta come up with what makes sense
Yeah.
for you, and then if stuff's going in there later, that you kinda notify, hey, there's some new stuff in Google Docs.
I would say probably after Saturday, I'd let you know,
Yeah.
because some people need Sunday for review.
Yeah,
I think our policy says a week before.
right, and it's just like when I was on the select board, that's
the ideal.
The ideal, and.
Yep.
No, I get it.
So, we gotta be reasonable, so.
Okay, so I will work on notification. Okay.
So the budget right now that you have printed on your purple pages is in essence the budget that
It
this
is-
board voted.
It's the budget that this board voted, it's the budget that's in the MS-22, with very minor tweaks, just because we had to, based on this dollar amount, this retirement didn't end up being quite what this was, so we tweaked it here, we moved it a little bit there, but it's not much of a move compared to what you've seen, and I will make sure that this is up for you guys tomorrow.
Good.
And if there's a color you like better than purple, I'll give it to you.
Pink.
Pink, okay.
Anything-
Smile, Charlie.
I don't care what color it is. Fuchsia.
But keep the budget committee mellow, pink.
It's gonna work? I don't know.
If
So,
there's electronics.
is there anything else, Ruth Ellen, for public?
At this point, I don't believe there is.
Does any staff have anything for public?
Well, actually, one more.
Go
You
ahead.
received an email from the FTA president. Is that something you wanted to,
Oh,
regarding end of year?
oh, yeah. Every one of the board members received a email from
Laurel Vashon?
Laurel Vashon regarding a request for consideration of terminating the teacher's years sooner, with some supporting information. I did have a chance to ask Ruth Ellen about it today. I sent her a copy. She wasn't initially on the mailing list, so I asked Ruth Ellen to review it and then get back to us at this meeting with her thoughts or concerns, so
Okay.
go ahead.
As I look at it, we have a couple of things. I believe that the email suggests that, we have additional time that's been included there. Part of that also includes the 7 or the 6 snow days that we have, which I believe we are 1 day over because the 13th, there was some question as to whether that actually counted in our days or not counted in our days. So I went ahead and said, all right, fine, we'll do that day as a day that was out. But the other days are part of our snow days. So when this says that we've exceeded by, we actually haven't, because those snow days were days that were in here. As we look at what we need to do for the end of the year with debriefing, with preparations for next year, whether that is remote, fully in person, or ready to gear up for a hybrid, depending upon what may or may not shift. We have a lot of work to do. And while I can probably say we might be able to take a couple of days off of that, we're going to need a good bulk of that to take that much more time to back it up from the 19th to the 9th. We're going to need that time.
Now,
We have a lot of work to do.
On the phone, you had mentioned that you had a list or things that needed to get accomplished. Working on a list?
The admin team is working on what that year-end schedule will look like. We had set a date for ourselves to have that compiled by next week, and certainly could bring that back to you for next Monday night as well.
Is it possible that if we had a detailed list of everything that needed to get accomplished, that we could potentially get that accomplished early? But
Potentially earlier, not that early that I would say. That's shaving quite a bit of time off.
Right, so when you think next meeting that?
By next Monday, we were looking to have our list together. So certainly admin.
So that would be a better time to assess if, how much, if at any, time could be potentially shortened
Yes,
for consideration.
I think so.
Discussion or comment? I mean, if,
I'd like to, I'd like to hear the information next Monday night. In fairness to the teachers, I think when we ramped up for the remote training in the beginning, I think there were a lot of hours, at least from the people that I saw in the room, that were working nights, working weekends to get ready to get into the next program. I'm not saying that's 9 days, but I think there's been a lot of effort
There's no question that a tremendous amount of effort
put
is
in. So I'm not opposed to listening to the information and then making a collaborative decision on which way to move.
Okay. And I do have 2 others that I'd forgotten about, and I apologize.
okay, on this topic first.
Yes.
Stan or Josh, any comments on that? Okay, go ahead.
So that kind of segues into the calendar that is back in, it's the same one that you had seen back in early April, for next year, that has the early release days on it. Just as we have a tremendous amount of work to do to get ready for the next school year, part of that also involves needing to reset where we are in our learning progressions, in our grading protocols, and we have to have professional development time to do that. We just do. And so this calendar brings back some of that time. It's not ideally placed, but it's the best we can do with what we have with our current structures that would still allow us to be able to get some time in on a monthly basis so that we can continue that work. It's 8 half-days. Half-days are, because they would go through the lunch period, it would not count against our 180-day calendar, but we far exceed our hours required anyway, but we have to submit a 180-day calendar to start with. So that would be where that comes from. I had held off because I anticipated that we might have gotten some other guidance from the DOE in regard to what that might look like. That hasn't happened, and I think right now, September is too far out for people to forecast. So I think we need at least a start date, knowing that it's remotely possible, no pun intended, it's possible that we might be remote, but it is likely that we will be in person. And so wanting to be able to at least give families an opportunity so that they know how to plan. This is what we would be looking for.
So you're looking for the board to approve this?
Yes, I am.
I got a question on the very beginning with the new staff orientation on the 28th and then professional development on the 31st and 1st. At some point, we're going to sign an MOU, and some of the discussion in the MOU with the PD has been kind of an orientation, staff-type training on expectations under the MOU.
That
Those
was-
the days that you picture that taking
That was
place?
what was done this year.
Okay.
There was a specific training with admin team in I believe it was August 21st, actually,
Okay.
this summer. And then as all staff came in, that was part of that all-staff first development day.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, and that works, have you checked with, and I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but those 3 days schedule works with our SRO to help with that orientation, correct?
At this point, as far as they can tell, yes, it
Yes,
would.
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And they also need to know when our school year starts so that they know how
Yeah.
to schedule her as well.
Okay, perfect.
So, any other discussion on the 2020 to 21 school calendar? So I'll make a motion to approve the calendar as drafted.
Second?
Any discussion? Not hearing any, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Okay.
And then my last one
Okay.
is not on there. We have, in the past, done something for teachers for Teacher Appreciation Week, which is this week. And in the distant past, there was a practice of, I'm going to say fairly distant past, of using the principal's fund that was donated by the Women's Club. That was in large part where teacher appreciation funding came from. We are no longer able to use those principal's funds for anything but student-facing activities, per auditors, and trying to keep ourselves in good graces there. And so we don't have a specific budgeted place for that. I do have a line that I could do a line item transfer, but I did not want to do that for something that is not student-facing that I haven't brought to the board. I would,
What typically have we done for teacher appreciation as far as things with, and at what cost?
it's been anything from a small plant, a sub for lunch when they were on staff. It's usually something small within, say a $5 to $10 range, if that much per staff member. But it's been.
How many staff members?
Teachers, I have 106 plus about 47 paras. And a few other assorted folks that fill in there, so.
So, how much are you looking for and where are you going to take it from? I guess it's,
I would be looking at, particularly because I have lines for positions that I've been unable to fill, because I can't bring new folks into an empty building with no kids. I would be looking at probably 350 staff at the most. If I do,
That's it, that's not a very good number. You said 107 plus 45.
107 plus 4, actually it says plus 47 plus, and there's probably 10 others that fall into other categories.
So if you've got 165,
Okay.
175 max, is that what you're saying?
If I, actually comes out to 820 or so. What have you got?
$10 a piece, is that?
Oh, I didn't do $10 a piece. Okay. Okay.
Right.
So $10 a piece, it's
The question
yes, it
is where do we line item transfer that in? I don't want to transfer it into the principal's fund because that's
No,
going to create
I would transfer it into the staff development supplies line because it is for team building, for building up staff. It would be under a supplies line there.
It's like a professional development line. Okay, I'm fine with that. Do we want to put a not to exceed on it? If we were to make the
Yeah.
motion?
Kind of a late-breaking one for my thought process, but, so we have to have a motion where it's transferred from?
Permission to transfer and expend.
Consensus, we don't need a vote because it's under the 5,000.
I'll make that motion.
So we have a motion, do you have a dollar limit, Stan?
We just have 165 people. Let's go $1,550.
How about 2,000?
Not to exceed.
Okay,
I'll second that.
so we have a motion and a seconded by Tim. Any discussion? Not hearing any, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You gonna buy yourself one?
I wasn't intending to.
You
no.
should.
Let somebody else purchase it for me and I could buy my own stuff.
Next meeting, Charlie. That's
What's that?
the next meeting. That's on you. That's the third thing on your agenda.
Is it?
Yeah.
Bring me an iced
Bring her
tea.
flowers.
That would get, that can't do that.
Make it a nice tea, Charlie, it's all good.
That would really cause me some grief.
Yeah, we don't want to do that to you.
Flowers and jewelry.
No.
No, that's one thing
No, we're not even, you don't even have to go down that road, Charlie. Just
No.
keep the meeting going.
potted plant maybe, but that's about it. Anything else for public?
No.
Anyone else for anything for public? Well, at this point, I'd like to thank staff, whoever's left still with us. Have a good night. Good night to the public, and I'll make a motion to go into non-public under RSA 91A:3, 2, A, B, and C, personnel.
Second.
All in favor, roll call?
Aye.
Aye.
I will send out the next link, gentlemen.